Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome. Welcome. This is the secret of falling in love and staying in love. Okay, so if you're here and you want to fall in love, you want to stay in love, you're somewhere on the spectrum of completely single to married for decades and everywhere in between, you're in the right place. I'm Alicia, for those of you that have never met me before.
I'm Erwan, hey.
And let's see, we'll let some people in here. So those of you that are new, you are visiting a Mastery of Relationship session. So in our school, we have a weekly program. It's called Mastery of Relationship. Many of you here are in Mastery of Relationship, and we've opened tonight up so that those of you visiting can come. So that's where you are now. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to dive into a guided meditation for about 15 minutes to get grounded and start feeling into the topic tonight. Then we'll explore how to fall in love and stay in love in detail, complete with tips and stories and all sorts of things that you can take with you. Those of you that are new, I have a cool opportunity for you that I'll let you know about a little bit later in the session tonight. We'll do a fun exercise, we'll take some questions, and then we'll end about 9 o'clock. So before we dive into the meditation, we want to give you a sense, for those of you that are new, a little bit about us, like how we got to be doing this, what our training is, our background, all that kind of stuff. So for the last 25 years, Erwan and I have supported over 12,000 singles and couples in their love lives and their sex lives. Never a dull moment, right? Never a dull moment.
It's not boring.
And we love it. We love it. And people come to us that are single and want to juice up their dating life and succeed there and find someone they're really attracted to and create that relationship. And couples come to us that want to juice up their connection, bring in the chemistry, resolve whatever issues are going on, take their relationship to the next level. People have sexual issues, psychological patterns they want to overcome, all sorts of stuff. We've seen it all, and that is who we support. Now, we have a method that we use to support you in your goals and your challenges and everything you want in your love life and your sex life. So Erwan's going to go through that method a little bit so we give you a sense of what it is.
Now, you're probably aware that in our love lives, everybody's love life, right? No matter how enlightened you are, no matter how great it's going, no matter how much challenge you're having, there is stuff that goes on internally in your mind from the past. We call that your relationship blueprint. The first part of our method is you getting clear on, what is that stuff that's sort of bleeding over from your past into your present. In that image on the screen, you can just fill in the box with whatever it is for you. You get really angry, or you get really scared, or there's codependence, or you're distancing yourself from the other person, or you're having a ton of fights, or you're alone. Kind of take one of the people out of the picture here. You're a woman and you're alone, or you're a man and you're alone, or you're avoiding relationship, whatever. The first part of our method is you get clear on your relationship blueprint. Okay, that's very, very important. People try to skip over that. You don't want to skip over that, right? All the tips and tricks in the world won't do it. You really want to know, what are you importing from the past into your present love life that's getting in your way? We're going to do some great work on that tonight, and it's the first part of our method. Now, the second part of our method is getting in contact with your true self, right? Now, this is an image from we had a Leo birthday party. Maybe your true self is like this. Maybe you're a Leo and, like that, or however that goes for you. But, your true self is like the deeper dimension of yourself. If you were to use spiritual terminology, you could say your spirit or your being, who you really are. It tends to have a profoundness, a depth, a positivity, a brightness. Now, once you've contacted your real self, then you're really a candidate for chemistry and romance, and that's the next part of our method, is chemistry, masculine, feminine chemistry, right? The chemistry that happens in romantic relationship. Usually it's a man and a woman, sometimes it's two women, sometimes it's two men, it can go all different kinds of ways, but there's got to be some chemistry, there's got to be some difference, there's got to be some polarity for there to be something shaking. There's an energetic connection, there's a vibrance, a turn on, right? And so that part of our method is masculine feminine dynamics, right? And it's very sexy. It kind of launches the romantic relationship. Now the next part of our method is moving through the stages of relationship, right? From dating, and you got some chemistry and you're kind of hooking up or whatever. Then there's stages in relationship. After a while, you're moving in together, right? It's not just your date, it's your boyfriend, it's the person you live with, it's your best friend and lover. And that goes all the way to a committed relationship, goes all the way to a soulmate, right? That kind of relationship that people really want to have, okay? Now, the last part of our method, so we call that choreography, by the way, that moving through the stages of relationship. Now, the next part of our method is, let me say one more thing about moving through the stages of a relationship. It's like being on a path with somebody. It's like your partner in life. We don't use the word partner so much because partner can mean a lot of things. It's like your, I don't know, it could be like your business partner or your friend or like your tennis partner, your one and only. But the way we mean it is you're moving through life. You're on a really deep path together, and that includes romance and sex. And then sex is the last part of our method. If you want to have a great romantic relationship, what we call an eternal date, a relationship that reaches higher and higher levels of attraction and sexual intimacy and love and union, you got to have the sex needs to be off the charts. That's one of our specialties. We're kind of a bit of a one-stop shop for everything romance, right? So those are the different parts of our method, from your psychology to your spirit to masculine feminine dynamics to moving through the stages of relationship together to having it be rockin', knock your socks off sexy. All right? Now, I know for me, I was not, I didn't come into this world with that knowledge. In fact, I came in kind of the opposite situation. My parents' relationship was a disaster. And my mother left the United States and went to France when I was 7. I barely saw her after that. It was like a disaster on top of a disaster. Then my father had a stroke and left him handicapped. My one and only parent, my single parent, got paralyzed and couldn't function, and I didn't know how we were going to survive and all the rest of that. And like it went, it was like a disaster on top of a disaster on top of a disaster. Then my mother, who lived in France, died, who I'd barely seen, and that was just, like I was kaput, right? So I ended up in therapy and workshops and studied psychology and all this stuff at a very early age. And it turned into a blessing. All those disasters turned into a blessing because I had to learn. I had to deal with myself. Most people don't have the good fortune of having that much misfortune. But some of you have. Some of you can resonate with what I'm saying. But no matter how much good fortune or misfortune you've had, learning about romance is a good idea. Now, when I was a teenager, I was kind of out in the world, and I was a little bit of a gangster. I'll show you a picture. I'm putting some new pictures in for those of us who are in mastery of relationship, because so you get to kind of see, so it's a little different each time. I was into graffiti. I was out all night. My father had a stroke, so I could just do whatever I wanted, like basically all the time. I was doing some really crazy stuff. I'm really glad I survived. In the middle of that whole process, believe it or not, I had a bar mitzvah. You might be able to tell I'm stoned at my bar mitzvah. It was just crazy. I was in psychoanalysis. I had OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, for those of you who know what that is. It was just, really absolutely crazy. When I started to sort myself out, I came to California to study psychology, and I became a hippie. All right. So I'm doing rebirthing. I'm doing every possible workshop on the planet. Like, I'm doing anything and everything to sort myself out. At the age of 20, I had 5 years of psychoanalysis under my belt. I was about to graduate with a degree in psychology. Then I started teaching for the world's largest transformational organization. Did that for 7 years. Then took a look at what am I most interested in, and it is her. A woman, a relationship, right? So devoted the rest of my life to that, and that was 30 years ago, and I just really thank my lucky stars. So that's a little bit about me. How about you?
Well, I had the opposite childhood of Erwan. Let's just put it that way. But we do have one thing in common, which I'm going to let you know. I also had a bat mitzvah. Whoa! And I grew up in the most idyllic place ever. Rancho Palos Verdes, California, down in LA, right? This is paradise. It's where I grew up. I had a very stable upbringing. I did not have disasters of any kind. However, I probably could have used one or two, right? I probably could have used one or two.
I was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, my train wreck. But before that, I went to college, and I was sort of like having this, I remember sitting in my dorm room, and there was all this build up to college, and I was like having that, is this all there is kind of feeling. And I looked out the window and felt lonely and kind of oddly anxious and depressed. And I created my own disaster, right? I created I don't know what the heck I'm doing or who I am. I went into therapy, and the rest is history in terms of what I devoted my life to. I started studying psychology. I got my master's degree. I trained as a therapist. And then when I was about to go off and kind of become a professional therapist is when I met Erwan, and he had been doing what he just described for the last 10 years. He had founded our organization, supporting people in their love lives and their sex lives, and I'm like, I'm jumping on board with that. So I jumped on board. I'm still on board.
So
never going anywhere. So that's it. That's us.
That's who we are.
And we've become the go-to place, first of all, in the San Francisco Bay Area for all things romantic and sexual. We're quickly becoming that. Internationally, we have all of our courses online. We work with both singles and couples. We like the personal touch. We're going to give you some great information. Don't worry about that. But beyond that, we like to hold your hand through the process of creating the most amazing love life and the most amazing sex life you've ever dreamed of. So that's what we are up to tonight. Now, for those of you in mastery of relationship, last session, we covered love, the secret elixir. And tonight, we are continuing our study of love, focusing on falling in love and staying in love. Last week, your activity was to write a gratitude list and really open your heart to all the good things in life. Tonight, we're going to get even juicier. So let's start with some meditation.
All right, so we're going to do a guided meditation. So let yourself sit upright on your couch or your chair. If you're on a couch, however upright you can. If you're on a chair, let your feet be planted on the floor, nice and grounded. Take a breath, feel your lower body. Last week we focused on love and the human heart, the most sensitive organ, the most sensitive anything. There's nothing more sensitive than your heart. So just take a moment to take a breath into your heart. Appreciate your heart. Feel your heart. Feeling your body will support that. So just sense your body. Your body might feel excited or turned on or tired. Could feel numb. Could be a lot of sensation. Whatever's going on in your body, just let yourself feel your body. And use that to really support your heart. Feeling your heart. Noticing your heart. What does your heart feel like? Does your heart feel full? Does your heart feel warm? Does it feel cool? Does it feel empty? Empty is not bad, by the way. Does it feel like there's a wound in your heart? Like a gash or a cut? Does it feel like a firework or a fountain, kind of expansive and blossoming? Is it difficult to experience your heart directly? Just notice that. If that's the case, that's fine. But continue with the concentration, concentrating on the experience in your chest. If your attention wanders, just bring it back. And use your body to help your center of attention drop from your head down through your neck into your heart. We have no question you have a really big heart. I don't have any doubt about that at all. If your concentration wavers, focus on your abdomen, your belly center as an anchor, as a ground. That'll help release that kind of wandering attention. Nowadays, everybody and their brother is getting diagnosed with ADHD or ADD or all these rest of these kind of things. One way to look at that is as a difficulty with concentration. When your concentration wavers, just bring it back to your body, your abdomen, and your heart. And I'll tell you, I used to live in a Zen monastery. We'll show you some pictures. Tonight is very picture oriented. We're going to show you a lot of pictures tonight. I'll show you some pictures of the actual monastery I lived in. One of the things, or maybe the most important thing I learned in the Zen monastery is it doesn't matter what you're experiencing. What matters is that you're experiencing it. So see if you can just be open to your experience, however it is. Your heart feels full or empty or numb. Your body feels hot or cold, pain, pleasure. experiencing your heart is extremely important. It's one of the secrets to being in love. You need an open heart. You need to feel your heart. There is no being in love with somebody new or your partner or anybody without experiencing your heart. Your heart is required. So just let yourself experience your heart. Closed heart, open heart, warm heart, cool heart. Heart might be full of passion, or might be full of hatred, might be full of love. Just let your heart be where your heart is. But experience it. So far we're feeling our bodies, and we're feeling our hearts, and we're concentrated on that. Our attention wavers, we bring it back. The next center that I'd like you to feel is the head center. So just feel your head center, notice the state of your head, the state of your mind. Let the thoughts come, let them go. Let your mind be where your mind is, but see if you cannot, if you imagine your thoughts are like a horse or horses, don't get on the horse and ride off into the sunset of your thinking. Just let the horse come, let the horse go, and bring your attention back to your body and heart. Your mind is required for being in love. You need to be open-minded. There needs to be approval in the head center. We'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But just for now, just notice the state of your mind, the shape of your mind, if you will. I remember once the Zen master I lived with invited me to notice the shape of my mind, and I told him that it felt bent out of shape. He laughed. It's fine if your mind is bent out of shape, or your mind is disapproving, or it's confused, or it's distracted and full of thoughts. It's fine. Just notice the shape, the state of your mind. Let yourself be open to your mind. So your body is like an anchor, right? Presence, the body, it's grounding. You feel your feet, your legs, your abdomen. That supports feeling your heart, the heart full of love or fear or anger or joy, whatever it is, but you're feeling your heart. You're noticing your mind. You're not subscribing to those thoughts. But you're just noticing your mind, the head center, the mental center. And there's another center that's required for falling in love and staying in love, and that's your sex center or your genital center, or sometimes we call it your vital center. Right? And that would be right at the base of the torso where the sex is, the vagina, the penis, the cock, the pussy, whatever you want to call it. It's got like a tingliness or a vitality. Even saying the words or hearing the words might, evoke something for you. Might feel full, might feel empty, might feel turned on. Could feel all different kinds of ways. Don't control it. but I invite you to feel your sex center. Your sex center is required. If you're in love with somebody, it's not just companionship. It's not the way you love your grandmother. There's a vital, energetic, sexual component there. So you do need to be in contact with the sex center or the vital center. So let your breath reach down through your chest, into your abdomen, all the way into your pelvic bowl. And to complete our meditation, let yourself feel all 4 of those centers simultaneously. Your body center, your heart center, your head center, and your sex center. Just let yourself feel them all simultaneously. They all need to be open to have the experience of being in love, but the first step to having them be open is you being open to the state that they're in, right? Don't push them around. Don't bully your heart or your head or your body or your sex center. Be open to where you're at. So as we wind down, see if you can bring a little love, a little acceptance, a little inclusiveness to whether you're turned on or turned off, or your body is in pain or in pleasure, your heart is full of love or full of whatever, right? Your head's, whatever's going on there, right? We'll talk about how to have all those centers be more open, but the most important part of having all of those centers open is you being open to your state. Okay, so gently let your eyes open if they're still closed. And see if you can maintain some contact with yourself in each of those 4 levels. And notice that brings some emotion into the equation. It brings some noticing, some intelligence into the equation. It brings some feeling, some body, some sensation into the equation. Even over Zoom, we can feel each other. If you're with somebody, you can feel them. Maybe you can feel everybody in the class tonight. There's a lot of people with us tonight. And it also brings some vitality, some sexual energy, some polarity into the equation. And that's very important. That's like the juice. That's like the fuel. It's not all of being in love, but it's a very important part. And this is a safe place to really feel that. You're in the safety of your own home, right? So, it really is okay to feel that part of yourself, to just kind of stay with that part of yourself, whatever is going on down there. All right, so we're going to now go through all of that, but in more detail, okay? And the transmission of tonight's class is going to be that much more powerful if your video is on. Your video doesn't have to be on, totally up to you. We love you anyway. It'll just go through a little bit more powerfully. So I just want to tell you that. Now, part of how that works is that openness, that receptivity, right? So a miracle could happen tonight. And it's going to have a lot, we're going to say some great stuff, and, trust me, it'll be great. But what's more important than the teacher is the student. So your receptivity, your openness in all of those centers really is the most important. That's really what's going to make the biggest difference. If we said nothing and we just sat here and we were totally still and you were open in all 4 centers throughout the whole evening, it would be better than us saying the most brilliant stuff and you being closed. Okay, so you have your hands on the dial tonight, whether you're in mastery of relationship or you're new. Okay, you have that much power. Tonight could be, have a very big impact for you if you're open to it. Okay, so let's start the topic proper by looking at what love is not. What being in love is not. And you might want to chat some of those in. What being in love is not. And I'll say a few things. Will you put the chat up for me so I can see it?
Yes.
So, what being in love is not.
What
right?
is it not?
It's not a fairy tale. Being in love is something you actually experience in real life, in the real world. It's not a fairy tale. It's not a fantasy. It's not about finding the one and only. If there was only one person for you out of the 8 billion, right, odds are you'd never really find them. So it's not a fairy tale, and it's not about finding the one and only person who's out there somewhere. It's not about being good looking. It's not about, and that's not bad, being good looking is fine. For all of those of you who are good looking, great, awesome, good for you, right? A bonus, right? But it's not about being good looking. It's not about being rich. It's also not about meeting somebody who fits your pictures. You know how, like, in our mind we have all these pictures of how the person should be, and if we're in a relationship, we're just kind of measuring them against that picture. Or if we're not in a relationship, we're looking for somebody who fits the picture, right? So being in love or falling in love and staying in love is not really about finding that person or being with that person who fits your pictures.
People are writing in some great stuff here. So being in love is not obsessive, possessive. It's not lust. It's not unsafe. It's not the specific bubbly feeling. It's not competitive. It's not perfect. It's not being judgmental.
That's a particularly good one. It's not being judgmental, because those judgments from the head center, remember we talked about being open-minded? That's very important for being in love. When I started studying sensuality almost 30 years ago, and I was doing all kinds of classes and stuff, sometimes I was paired up with somebody, and I had so many judgments about the person that it was just killing the experience of the exercise, maybe the eye-gazing exercise, or, the hand-on-heart exercise, or even something more sensual like stroking. For those of you who know what that is, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then I noticed I was being so judgmental. Like the person it was really impacting was me, and I'd been that way in all of my relationships, and it was just taking the juice, the in love, out of the relationship. So that's a particularly important one. Being in love is not about being judgmental and finding somebody who fits your pictures.
There's not predictable, yes. Not controlling. It's not about being the best. These are great. So there's a lot of things that being in love is not.
All right, so let's just kind of clear that all away. Just kind of let all of that go. So there's that openness that we keep coming back to, right? So openness of mind, openness of heart, openness of body, even openness of the sex center, right? So that's what being in love is. Being in love is having all parts of you, from the top to the bottom, really be open with somebody else. So you're not judging them. Your heart is feeling, and you're really feeling them. You're really with them at the level of love and the heart. And your body, right? Like your body is sensitized. Nowadays, the information age, sometimes our bodies are like, we're not feeling anything. We're just thinking stuff. No, you got to have a sensitive body. Take a breath, feel your body. And the sex center is also open. And that was one of the things I learned in my sensuality research. I had these very strict guidelines, at that point I was like early 20s, I'll only do anything sensual, even flirt with somebody. The woman has to look like this and be like that. It was so critical. It was just awful, And it was really just kind of killing that in-love feeling. And then I noticed that when I was in relationships, I was doing the same thing. So you don't want to do that. You want to also have your sex center open. So take a moment, just like the guided meditation, breathe down all the way through all the parts of your body, your head, your heart, your abdomen, your sex, so that tonight is experiential. So it's not conceptual, so you're actually experiencing it. Give you a little incentive for doing this. If you can do this, whether it's with the person that you live with, who you've been married to for 20 years, or somebody new that you're going on a date with, or you want to get with somebody, if you can feel all parts of you, you'll be attracted to way more people, even your partner if you're in a relationship, right? It's not going to be like the honeymoon was in the past. You'll be attracted to them in the moment, and people will really be attracted to you. You'll be beating them off with a stick.
Now, one thing I want to say, as you're sitting here and you're feeling, you're experiencing your mind and your heart and your body and that sex center, the vital center, little thoughts might pop up like, oh gosh, I'm not feeling the right thing, in my heart, or, ooh, my sex center, I'm not supposed to, or, oh, I don't feel, I'm numb, oh no, or, whatever thoughts come, I give you permission to just ignore them and come back to your body. Whatever you feel is perfect, honestly.
So this is about emptying the mind. So let's take a moment. We're going to, just like in the guided meditation, we went through all the centers. We're going to go through them more in depth now. And I'll show you an image of the monastery that I used to live in. This is Green Dragon Temple in Marin County. And I spent countless hours meditating in this room. And it's very, very mind emptying. So just like Alicia said, thoughts will come, thoughts will go, just let them come and go, and notice the space behind your thoughts, the space in between the thoughts. I'll show you another image from Green Dragon Temple. This was the meditation hall. This is where there's little rooms on the left and the right. This is where we slept. Now, obviously, there's no pictures in these images, but even when there were people around, it kind of felt like that because we were in silence just about all the time. So just notice what it's like to empty your mind. And the secret to emptying your mind is not fighting with the thoughts, but noticing the space between the thoughts, the emptiness in the background. Here's a picture of Green Dragon Temple from a distance.
So that's the mind part, opening our minds. Now, there's the heart part, really opening your heart to yourself, opening your heart to others. It's kind of like we all want to do that, right? And sometimes we don't know how, or we're trying to open, come on, we're trying to force it or something. Erwan and I have a practice that we do several times a week called psychological inquiry. It's one of the 4 practices that we train our students in. And it basically involves taking turns, going into our experience and just sharing whatever we're feeling. And it's so great because when you find yourself at the end of an evening and you've been either working or taking care of kids or doing whatever, and you just want to zone out and numb out. That's not a bad thing, by the way. I like Netflix too. But we have this really special practice. And the other night I came into our bedroom. It was 9:30 at night. And Erwan has done the coolest stuff with our bedroom lately. He got these little LED lights? Is that what you
LED
call them?
lights.
LED lights that he put like under our bed and around this painting that he painted, and it's this glow. So I like walk down the stairs and there's this red glow, and I had been kind of in my head on my computer, whatever, coming down into this red glow. And I lay it on the bed and we start doing our inquiry. What we do is we deliberately pick topics to share about that are going to open our hearts. So we don't usually say, well, here's my complaints about you and about the day. No, we say, oh, the other night, how are you experiencing love in life right now? Erwan asks me this, and I set the timer for 10 minutes, and I'm just talking about love. And as I'm talking about love, I can feel my heart opening, and I look at him, and I'm like, I feel love with you, and I just feel so amazing, and the red glow. By the time I was done with that inquiry, 10 minutes, my heart was so open. And then he took his turn, same thing. So there's ways that you can deliberately allow your heart to open and be in that love space.
And psychological inquiry, for those of us who are in master of relationship, you're aware that really opens your heart, because the heart is usually encumbered by the relationship blueprint, the ego, the reasons not to feel, all that stuff. When Alicia came down that night, the LED lights were on and everything looked really good and all that. One thing she didn't mention is that I was watching a movie, right? And she came down, and the first thing I felt was, I don't want to do psychological inquiry. I want to watch my movie, right? Because there's just that way we protect our hearts and a reason not to, and like that. But if you're on a date with somebody, right? Like you're meeting somebody, you met at maybe a speed dating event or something, or you're on you're going out with your wife or husband of 10 years, right? If your heart is on that date and open and feeling, it's a completely different experience. To have that experience of in love, you not only have to have the openness of mind to be open to the other person and approving of them, you have to actually really feel your heart. And, that takes something. At first, I didn't kind of want to do it, but we did our practice, our psychological inquiry, and our hearts really opened. And like 60 seconds into it, I'm like, thank God we're doing this, right? So the heart is very important, obviously, but it's not like a concept. We're not interested in sharing that concept with you. We're interested in you feeling your hearts right now, right? So just feel your heart, take a breath, feel your chest. Heart feels open, heart feels closed, feels like a wound, feels empty, whatever's going on. Just do that. Just notice that. And then now we're going to go down to the body, right? We said, your body sensing is very important. Has a lot to do with being alive, has a lot to do with being in love, has a lot to do with being present, right? So one of the practices that I do, and you've actually taken on
I've been doing it
recently, is whatever it takes to wake your body up, right? In this case, it's a cold shower. I was joking with Alicia. It looks like Obama's taking a cold shower.
I thought it was Raya True at first. I'm like, geez, this is great.
Like, the president or ex-president's taking a shower. It's not Obama, but you get the idea. It's really important to do something to be in your body. Your body is it's the center of presence, of really being here, of being manifest. If there's not the body, the heart has no place to show up, right? So take a moment, feel your body, concentrate on the sensations in your body. It's particularly important nowadays because, again, it's the information age and people are distracted and a million thoughts and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Just feel your belly, take a breath. Feel that center of presence. Put that image back on. I think even the image might sort of inspire that kind of feeling. if we were at sometimes we go teach at retreat centers. If we were at a retreat center, we would probably take a 20-minute break right now and send you all off to go take a shower and then alternate the hot and the cold water. Right? Even just imagining that, you can kind of feel the sensation, the sensitivity, the aliveness that comes into your experience. That's a very important part of being in love. You got to be open-minded. Got to feel your heart. There needs to be access to love, and there needs to be that body feeling, that aliveness, right? Being in love is, you feel really alive. People often report that they can't sleep when they're in love with somebody, but they don't feel tired, right? So your body is actually very important. We're getting down to the basic building blocks of being in love. So it's not this like conceptual thing and you're waiting for the right person, or it's going to rain down on you from heaven, or it's some great mystery. We're really putting the ingredients together. Open mind, open heart, sensitive body, and then that secret ingredient, the thing that lights the whole thing up, that gives it that romance charged, sexy, and we're going to go into this one in depth. You've got to get romance, sex, flirting, sensuality back into your life and into your experience to have that experience of falling in love with somebody or staying in love with them. And we invite you to do that right. Alicia is master. She's way better at this than I am. Because I wasn't even thinking about Alicia at all. And then she just went there, and it's like it just electrifies the whole thing. It just, makes the whole thing romantic and like that. So just let yourself feel that from us. Maybe you're with your partner, maybe you're just feeling people in the group. It's really fine. I know, some traditions and religions and philosophies kind of make it taboo, and you're not supposed to, and you're only supposed to do it on a weekend and not at work, and all the rest of this kind of stuff. Just put that aside and just let yourself feel the natural turn on that it is to be a human being. Your sex center is there all the time. You don't have to repress it. You can really feel it. And that's a very important ingredient, maybe the essential ingredient to being in love, falling in love, and staying in love with somebody. So we're going to dive into that one in depth.
So there's ways to do this, and there's ways not to do this. Okay, so we're going to list a few things that can take away from that sexual energy in relationship. Okay, so the first one is a lot of pornography. We're not against pornography, I need you to know that, but a lot, overuse, and also over ejaculation. It can be very depleting and take that sexual energy from the relationship and just expel it out there.
And that's very important. For guys, ejaculating a lot is like taking all the fuel out of the tank, especially if it's to porn. And then there's nothing left chemically to actually respond to the woman or women or date or your wife or however it goes for you, all right? And the other point that Alicia made is also important. The pornography, what that does is that takes us away from real people, and it makes it kind of sort of very easy to feel turned on, but in a very kind of
thin. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say fantasy, but that's a good word.
Yeah.
Thin, kind of a thin way. It's not really real. It's not really that gratifying. So what turns the sex center off in the long run is too much pornography for anybody. We're not against it. Use it sometimes if you want, whatever, but it can become like a bad habit. Or ejaculating a lot for guys. Another one.
Yeah, so one thing that does not add to the romance and the chemistry as a single is staying home. all the time. It can be a little daunting, to think, wow, I want to go and meet somebody or meet some people and get out there. Well, I'll do that tomorrow night. I'm just going to stay home because it can be a little uncomfortable at first, right? No chemistry will be built staying home alone all the time. There's something so refreshing about actually getting out of the house, mingling with some people, properly distanced and all of the stuff that has us feel safe during these times, but really getting that energy from interaction.
Yeah, and this is a big one nowadays because of the pandemic, obviously. But earlier today, I spent half of a coaching session with a student of ours just brainstorming ways that he could get more socializing into his life safely. Joining different clubs on Meetup or going to different events on Eventbrite. A lot of you probably found us, those of you who are new might have found us through those modes, right? That lion picture we showed you earlier, we had a party here, a Leo party about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. So there's events, there's things happening, there's dinner parties, there's going out to parks, there's being around people. So kind of, isolating really turns all of those centers off. So you don't want to get too isolated, even in these kind of crazy times. So if you would, write down now, what are some things that turn the sex center off? We're going to go to how to turn it on in a minute. But what doesn't work? If you can just chat
it in.
Yeah, just chat in a few of those. We'll just read a couple of them. Trauma, right? Extremely important to deal with those issues. That's why our method starts with dealing with the mind and the psychology and your relationship blueprint. That's the first thing, and it's often overlooked. That's excellent. I'm glad somebody wrote that. Ruminating on negative relationship experiences, right? Kind of overthinking that stuff, especially if you do go on a date with somebody. You don't want to be you ever go on a date with somebody and then they talk to you about their past relationships that didn't work? Major turnoff. The inner critic, brilliant. Talking oneself out of it. Overwork. Being emotionally closed. Okay, great. So you got the idea, right? There's all those things that that don't work. Now, what does work? What works? Now, this is kind of a simple thing to say. So I want to give you an example. But what works is taking your attention and putting it on your sex center, right? We teach all kinds of sex classes also, including extended orgasm. The most important thing is putting your attention on your sex center. If you just do that right now, you will notice you get some kind of boost in your experience. Now, what does that look like in your life? Might look like making out with somebody, might look like doing yourself. But another way it might look is sex training, right? We're talking about falling in love here tonight. We're doing it experientially. It's very safe, all that. You're in your living room or your bedroom or whatever. But you're doing some sex training right now. It's not an extended orgasm class, I got that. But you're actually doing some of that right now. Now, you can do it in more advanced ways. Maybe we'll end up talking a little bit. Oh, in fact, we will talk a little bit about that later on in the class tonight. But I know for me, because, this is almost 30 years ago that I started this, I went to some crazy places to get sex training. At one point, where did I find out about this? It was my friend Scott who told me somebody was having some kind of event or something like that. And I showed up. It was we live in San Francisco. It was also in San Francisco. It was in near where we used to go to yoga. It was in Glen Park, very close to where we go to yoga. Used to go to yoga, actually. And, so me and my friend Scott went over there, and there's nobody there. We're ringing the doorbell. Nothing is happening. And then a limo pulls up, and here, we'll let this person in. A limo pulls up, and this really short guy gets out of the limo along with a whole bunch of gorgeous women. And we're like, okay, this is cool, interesting. I don't know what's going on. And he is totally drunk, like wasted. The women are holding him up. And so then we start getting a little nervous and we're trying to leave. And then they're like, no, come in. You came for the event. We're like, there's just the people who live there and us. But we're like, whatever. Long story short, we end up in the hot tub, and the guy has, next to the hot tub, he has a shotgun, believe it or not, and he takes the shotgun and he's shooting squirrels from the big tree in his yard. I mean, it's just, off the hook. And there's these like super hot, sexy women around, like being really, really sexual, so sexual that we can't, for appropriateness, put it on the screen right now, like just really, crazy, off the chart. And like, then there's me, and Scott, like right in the middle of all of that. And, so my point is I went to some crazy places for sex training. Sex training is great. You can do it from the comfort of your own living room. The essence of it is putting your attention on your sex center, learning how to feel that, learning how to feel more.
So as a woman, there are also other ways to bring that sexy, bring that romance, bring that flirting. I remember when I went to college in Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, and I met this girl in my Spanish class. Her name's Heather. And whenever we would hang out, she would tell me about these sexy stories, like, ooh, I made out with this new guy, or I flirted with this guy. And I'm like, how does she keep meeting these guys? I was like struggling to meet anybody and like feeling really awkward and like weird, this. Her secret was being in her body. Here's how I figured that out. I started to notice that every time I would hang out with her, she would say things like, she'd call me and be like, hey, do you want to come over and lay in the sun and eat mangoes? And I'm like, okay, I'll be right over. And then that's what we would do. Not, hey, want to hang out? It was lay in the sun and eat mangoes. Or I would be in her apartment and she'd be like, I want to show you my new belly dancing routine. And she'd put on her little skirt and her little cute things or pasties and be dancing around her apartment. And I was like, wow, this woman's in her body. I'm turned on. That's the secret. Doing things to be in your body, whether it's surrounding yourself with yummy smells or people that turn you on, or making sure that you take warm bubble baths whenever you want to, or you watch sexy movies, you eat the food you really like, all of those ways to turn yourself on and be in your body.
From a masculine position, boldness, like going to that crazy place was actually pretty bold, much less getting in the hot tub with these crazy people and all the rest of that. Boldness is really important in opening up that whole kind of sexual arena for both women and men. But for guys, it's particularly important. For women, I love that Alicia shared that because, really confronting sexuality and turn on. I know Heather, and she's really, like that. And that, that's extremely important for the feminine. Now, if you're single or in a relationship, let's talk a little bit about that. When I was single, I didn't wait to get into a relationship to start my sex training and sensuality training. And I thank my lucky stars that I didn't wait for two reasons. One is it made my sex life off the hook. The more I did sex training, my sex life was just really far out. And then it also made it that when I met Alicia, like, I knew what I was doing. I knew like, that's her belly button, not her clitoris. Right? I could kind of, tell the difference between those two and, like that. I remember one day in my sensuality training, I was taking a course, God, this is like 1991, I think. And there was a set of sensuality exercises for homework. Those of you who are in Master of Relationship, you've probably done these exercises. We've given them to you in the pleasure course. So it'll probably ring a bell for you. And they're all about setting the environment up for all your senses, taste and touch and sight and sound and, just all this kind of stuff. But I was in the basement. I was visiting. I lived in Santa Cruz. That's where I went to university. And I was visiting Berkeley, actually. And I was in a friend's room in the basement. And it was a mess. It was disgusting. The window was about this big. Those windows that are at street level. So it was kind of like a dirty prison room, but cluttered.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, how am I going to do sensuality exercises in here that are supposed to be all about sexy and pleasure and all the rest of that? But I figured something out, which is I did two things. I took a sheet and I just threw the sheet over all of his stuff, and I turned on a red light. And if you turn on a red light in a messy room, everything looks perfect. It looks gorgeous, like that. But my point is that even if you're single, maybe especially if you're single, sensuality training, addressing that part of your life is really important to awaken your sex center.
And then those of you that are in a relationship or will be in a relationship, there's some really specific ways you can turn that relationship on. There's a couple that I'm working with, and they're in so many circumstances that just turn off their relationship sensually. They are great things in life, but they turn them off. They both got they're very successful, but have these very grueling jobs. They have 2 young children. They live in a tiny apartment in this very busy area of San Francisco on the 3rd floor. And they came to our work saying, oh my gosh, we really want to have more chemistry. We want to fall in love again. And during our sessions, as we do with the couples that we train, we train them in these clothed touching practices, and I have them looking into each other's eyes and appreciating each other, and him complimenting her beauty and all these things. And at the end of the session, they're on the couch and they're this close, and you can feel that palpable, yummy turn on. And they're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do it. We're going to do it every day. And then the next time we get to the session a week later, there they are. They're 3 feet away from each other on the couch. He's like, we forgot, I don't know. And we kind of had a fight and all this stuff. And she's like, I don't want to forget this time. So she put up this huge, what is that called? Butcher paper that covered the entire wall of their living room with big check boxes. And what she wrote on the checkbox list for herself is, she's like, 3 compliments a day. Feel my sex center while I'm saying it. He tells me I'm beautiful 3 times a day. And they had it on their wall, and they made the big check mark in the box every time they did it. And I tell you, it worked. And she particularly made sure that it worked by sensing her sex center. It didn't take any extra time, but it made that juice come out in their relationship. So that's how you deal with that as a couple. We're all busy. There's a million things to do. If you're deliberate and you do these things, it'll juice it up.
Now, what we do is we do this every day. We do a stroking practice every day in the morning. If you're in a relationship, you want to have some kind of practice that really takes advantage of that energy so it doesn't just kind of fall away and the honeymoon period is over and all the rest of that. All right? So I want to do a very brief summary of what we've covered so far. Being in love is not some fantasy or somebody who meets your pictures or has enough money or any rest of that kind of stuff. It's really a function of you being open in your mind, your heart, your body, and your sex with somebody else who's open in their mind, their heart, their body, and their sex. You'll find if you have 2 people like that, you have the ingredients. And you'd be surprised that it might not be. I don't think I fit the pictures of who Alicia was expecting. It might not be the person that you think that you end up having the amazing relationship with. Second part of what we covered tonight is that the secret, the sex center, the bonus center, the hidden center, the part we often don't deal with as human beings or talk about or all the rest of that. You really do want to address that. For guys, being bold is particularly important. For women, contacting that sexual energy, it's like the juice of the whole thing, it's what fuels the whole thing, is particularly important. If you're single, it's very important to address it and not wait until you're in a relationship, because it's actually what helps you get into a relationship. And if you're in a relationship, it's very important to have some kind of practice so that that chemistry keeps building over time instead of falling away.